everybody. It's Jeff here once again with the Freedom Nation podcast. And today's show, we're going to have a lot of fun. My guest is Leanne Linsky. She is a very funny comedian, actress, as well as the CEO of a really cool company that if you are a budding comedian and you want to expand your audience, she's your lady to go to. So Leanne, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I am so glad to have you here. So let's get started by having you tell us a little bit about your story. I know it's been a long and winding road, as you once put it, but tell me a little bit about your story.
Sure. It definitely has been a long road. So I actually went to school for business management, and I went to UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I graduated, and I ended up getting a job in an accounting department doing some accounts payable. And that was the last thing I ever thought I would be doing. I was like, if you were to say of all the subjects in school, which would I want to focus on? It was not accounting. But there I was, and I got this really good job, ended up working for that company for a year, went to another company. This other company was a national home builder. I was there for almost 13 years. So I thought I would be there until I retired. Honestly, I loved it. I love the people. Uh, I had the opportunity to move from accounting into market research. And then I went into construction, and I was a construction coordinator. Then I was a back-end superintendent. Then I was a service manager. And then I was a service area manager. Then I was a manager of cultural development. All these things, right? Over this, I was like, this is my life. But during that time, I was also in charge of setting up a lot of company events, like all of the quarterly meetings and all of these things that required me to do public speaking. And so in 2001, I took my first comedy writing class. I'm like, this is going to help me. I kind of wanted to do like some sort of Johnny Carson monologue or something. and, uh, and I took this comedy writing class, and it was so fun. And I was like, well, that was really cool. And then down the road, one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, Second City has a training center out here." And I was like, "What?" I mean, I'm familiar with Second City because I grew up outside of Chicago. So I grew up in Illinois. I was like, I didn't know they had a training center out here. So I ended up seeing an ad in the paper like that same week. And so I kept seeing these signs about Second City. I was like, well, hear about it one time is one thing, but when it keeps happening, it's like, I need to pay attention.
Yeah.
So I signed up for my first improv class.
I think there's a sign
Yeah,
here.
exactly. And I signed up for my first improv class, and there I went down the rabbit hole. I was I was like, I'm taking all the classes. And I did. I took everything they offered like 2 and 3 times. And 5 years later, after that, I learned that I was being laid off from my job. And here I had been at this job for almost 13 years. And I was like, what do I do with my life? And my friends that I had met in improv were like, well, you said if you didn't have that job, you would move to New York. So a friend called and said, hey, I'm getting a sublet in New York. Are you coming? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, you said, and I was like, oh, and I said, oh, I'll think about it. And he said, you have 1 hour. So an hour later, I called and said, yep, I'm in. And I ended up packing up 2 suitcases and moving to New York to pursue comedy full time. So I immersed myself in classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade, at Magnet Theater. Like I did all the things I possibly could. I went back to Chicago and studied for a month and a half at IO Chicago and went back to New York. So I just went all in, and I stayed in New York for about 9 years. And then eventually I moved to the West Coast, and I was in the Los Angeles area, not Long Beach, which Long Beach is not as close to LA as people said it was. In fact, even if you live 2 miles from LA, it's like
No,
a 3-hour
it's a pretty
commute.
good haul.
Yeah, it's bananas. It's just like, why am I sitting
Yeah.
in traffic? I would have to drive 2 hours to get 5 minutes of stage time. I'm like, this is silly. What am I doing? And then I was like, how do I continue doing comedy without, going broke, paying for gas and spending my life in a car? So
Mhm.
was like, why don't I do things online? Now, I thought about it. This was back in end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And I was like, oh, what if I use Skype? And people are like, not Skype. And then I was using Zoom for work and way back then, and because I was working remotely. And then I was like, maybe that. And then life happened. But like in August of 2019, I started actually put everything together and put my open mics online. Now this is before COVID, so August 2019 BC, before COVID, and started doing it. And I had regulars, coming on the mic, and they're like, "Hey, this is great because I can work out all my jokes. I know that when I get on stage, they actually work." And then COVID happened, and everybody started doing everything online. But although it solved an interim problem, it also created new ones because of tech. They weren't, the tech
Mm.
got us through the
Yeah.
pandemic, and that's fantastic. But I was like, my needs as a comedian are different. And so, how do I fix that? I ended up going back to school during COVID. I got my master's degree in innovation and entrepreneurship, easy for me to say. Um, and I got, yeah,
Nice.
to figure out how I could scale this, how I could build a team. Um, so I graduated. I ended up getting a team about a year later, and we built Plausible and launched in December of last year in 2022. And yeah, so we've been up and at them for a year and have been onboarding comedians ever since day one, and comedy fans, so that people can so the comedians can basically create, produce, set their own schedule, set their own ticket price, monetize their comedy shows in a whole new way, which puts more money in the comedian's pocket. And rather than being paid, contrary to popular belief, comedians do not make a lot of money typically unless they're really well known.
No.
We're often paid. We often pay to play, and we are often given like a burger and a beer, or something for our set, or a hey,
Mm.
thanks. And that's about it. So I wanted to give an opportunity for flip the whole model on its head, and then comedy fans can come and explore our comedian directory, find all kinds of new talent, people who've been around a long time. There's quite the range of how many years people have been doing it. So, and then people can do their own shows. Fans can
Mm.
figure out what they want. Everything's live in real time, and it's performed live for an online audience.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different concept than what people are accustomed to. So that's
Mm.
how I got here.
Cool. Well, I think that's absolutely
Thanks.
awesome. It is a long and winding road, but a great little winding road, and you ended up in
Yeah, I
Seattle,
ended up
correct?
I ended up in Seattle, which I never thought I would end up here, but here I am, and it's been great. We've been here just over 2 years, almost 2.5 years now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So you moved there during the pandemic then.
Yeah, we got here and everything was still pretty closed and shut down. So, which honestly worked out great for me because I'm so focused and committed to just
Yeah.
working on Plausible. I don't leave the house much. I'm always online. I'm always talking to people
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, let's get into
Mhm.
Plausible a little bit because I want to understand a little bit how it differentiates itself from, let's say, like a webinar platform or something
Yeah.
like that. So, how what is the difference between, let's say, a webinar platform and then what Plausible does so that it is more
So
functional for a
a
comedian?
webinar platform, you basically anybody can do whatever they want. Obviously, on a webinar platform, you just basically purchase the software and then or subscribe to it, and then you share the link out with people that you're inviting to it. With Plausible, think about it in the sense that you're logging into Plausible, you're not just getting a link. So I would compare Plausible, like what if you combined like your Netflix account, like you log it into Netflix as a consumer, as a audience, and you look through a directory of all the shows, or like
Hmm.
live TV, like if you log into Peacock or something, and everything is, or ESPN, and everything goes in time segments by day. That's how Plausible is. Like, we have a show schedule, so you
Hmm.
go into your dashboard and you see all the show listings. It's not video on demand. You can't just watch any show at any time. You have to show up.
Yeah.
If the show is at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon in your time zone, then it's 4 o'clock. Friday afternoon, and it happens live in the moment, and everybody else is there. And um, you can see and hear the other audience members. They can see and hear you. The performer can see and hear everybody as well. So, in the sense that
Nice.
it's a show directory, like a TV guide, if you will, and you can get free shows, you can
Yeah.
get pay-per-view shows on there. Depend and then on the flip side, everything's all encompassed into one thing. So, a comedian who's creating the show, they get their scheduling tools to create the show. They can upload their show graphics. They can put in their description. They fulfill all the information so it shows up in the show listings and the show guide. Um, and then they can set a ticket price if they want, or if they don't want, they have it's entirely up to the creator how much they want to charge. And then they put it out there. They can create their own profile and a profile directory. So when you think about a webinar, a conference webinar or conferencing thing, you just get just the webinar and conferencing thing. You don't know of all the events that are happening on Zoom. They don't tell
Yeah.
you, and you don't have access to all the users on Zoom and their profiles. So you don't have any of that. You just have,
Mm-hmm.
here's how you connect and see each other. Plausible, you get
Yeah.
the talent directory, you get the show listings. You can buy and purchase your tickets all online through Plausible. And then when it's time for the show, you click on the link, and it's Plausible software that connects you so that you see and hear everybody. There's no download of some alternate software or nothing like that. It's all Plausible.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I would think as a comedian, this is wonderful because you're not having to go out to all the little clubs to test your material and all that. You can basically stay at home, save the money, not get in a car for a couple hours, and you don't end up with the Laurel and Hardy handshake at the end of the evening.
Yeah, it's so true. So we have when I knew I wanted to do this and I started putting in all the research and everything, like the majority of open mics in general are in two states, New York and California. So if you don't live in a big metropolitan area, chances are you don't have a lot of opportunity to get up and get stage time. So we get a lot of comedians, not only from New York and California, of course, because that's where a high percentage of them are, but we get a lot of people in the flyover states. We get people from Canada. We get people from other countries. Our comedian of the year lives in Japan. So she just won the comedy contest. We have a monthly contest, and then we had all of the monthly winners compete for the year for the grand finale for the title of comedian of the year. So we have people from all over. So you're absolutely right. It kind of saves people a commute, even fans. Like we have people log in, they're like, "Wow, I can put my kid to bed. I don't have
Yeah.
to hire a sitter. I don't have to pay for parking. I don't have to do a 2-drink minimum. I can sit and I can have a good time from here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's live." So, I mean, people are more likely to laugh also when they hear other people laughing in the room. And watching something actively like
Mm-hmm.
that promotes more laughing out loud, more smiling out loud, rather than watching something passively, maybe as a video on demand structure.
So I can be a drunk, belligerent heckler from my house, which is awesome.
You could, but you might get removed from the show. So, it's funny because
Oh, okay.
it's funny because people ask about. I'm so glad you brought up. People ask about heckling, and especially now since so many
Yeah.
comedians show their crowd work on social media, that a lot of comedians are like, stop showing your crowd
Yeah.
work to those that do, because it tells people that it's okay to talk to the comedian, and most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, someone's talking to me. Stop talking to
Mhm.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that you
Yeah.
brought that up.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it breaks your
Yeah, it
routine
really
at that
does.
point. I would think it's just it's like being a speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like being a stage speaker, and the same thing. You get up there, and then somebody asks a question, and it's like, okay, and you're taking me out of my rhythm or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, I could imagine. I mean, just like you would drag out the drunk at the club, you don't have to have bouncers. You just have to have a finger on the button at that
That's
point.
right.
Yeah. So, do we? Are there some big names that we would know that are on there that are kind of testing material?
Uh, there are some names. I don't know how big of comedy fans your listeners are, so I guess it would depend. But I know I'm excited. There's a bunch of people who've been around a very long time. So, there's people who've been doing
Yeah.
comedy for over 40 years on the site. And there's people who just started,
Mm,
this past year. So it kind of runs the gamut. And there's all kinds of people.
yeah.
There's a lot of people who have had TV credits, who've been on late night talk shows and doing stand up. So, yeah. So there are people. I'm not name dropping. You notice that?
And yeah, I know you did well at that. I was impressed how you just kind of went through that one, the long and winding road of that question. Um, so I mean, I guess I think the cool part is, I mean, it's a lot like the early beginnings of YouTube, where a lot of stars, a lot of singing stars, really got famous off of YouTube because they weren't having to go out there and travel all over the place and live in a van and everything else. I mean, they were able to get their voice out there. I just think for a comedian, this is a much better platform from the standpoint of you can get some feedback from the audience and find out if your jokes are bombing.
Yeah, it is so true. It's going to give it kind of democratizes the whole industry in such a way, so it levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because I'm also excited. I nerd out about this all the time, but I also love to see how people use it, how people kind of there are some people now who are like, "Oh, I have a podcast. I can do my podcast. I can have my podcast, record it in front of a live audience on Plausible, still record it, download it and distribute it and
Mhm.
package it like I normally do." But it adds this other step. And if someone has a big
Yeah.
following on their podcast and they want to sell tickets to that live recording, they can do that. Because right now, if you want to sell tickets to a live recording of your podcast, you have to rent a venue. Well, what if you could do it all in one place and you can still record
Yeah.
it? Yeah. And it doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. It just adds value to your listener and adds money in your
Yeah.
wallet.
Well, so we know how the comedians make money. How do y'all make money?
Well, we get a percentage of that Plausible takes a percentage of the ticket revenue. So the majority of the ticket revenue goes to the comedian,
Okay.
and then we Plausible. I'll say
Hmm.
Plausible just so it's clear. It's not like Leanne's going, but Plausible does. Yeah.
Yeah. Leanne's just sitting there counting her money while you're on there sweating it as a
Oh my gosh,
comedian.
I wish.
So, now are you able to? Does Plausible have the capability to basically process those ticket sales and things like that, and then takes a cut from that, or is it more like the Eventbrite model where I do the event, I collect the money, and then I have to pay Eventbrite?
No, we have Stripe integrated into it, so it's all on Plausible. Like, you don't have to leave the platform and go through anything. It's all integrated right in. Mhm.
Love
Yeah, I tried to
it, love it,
simplify it
love
as
it,
much
love
as
it.
possible.
What? Yeah. Well, and I mean, not everybody's super high
Yeah,
tech either. So, I mean, the ability to not have to create all that, for a creative person that's like, hey, I just want to get up and be funny.
exactly.
I spent 2 weeks in Germany just recently, so you really need to recruit some German comedians because they are some of the funniest people in the world. I'm completely convinced. So
Yeah, bring them on.
they could make a mortician smile. So what's the future look like? What's some of the things that you're planning on, advancing Plausible with?
So I'm really excited because there's when we launched Plausible, it started out with a lot of open mics and comedians using it and helping other comedians get stage time, which is awesome. And now over time,
Hmm.
people are starting to test
Yeah.
out their podcast. People are testing out the pay-per-view options with the ticketing services, which is exciting. So there's new shows that people
Hmm.
are creating and that'll be coming out in the first quarter. And there's also going to be comedy classes. So I'm also very excited about that because comedians see an opportunity where they can actually teach others how to do stand up better, how to do stand up online, how to do those things are also happening in the
Yeah.
first quarter of the new year. So there's a lot of different use cases being rolled out
That's,
where again, whatever comedians can do to further their career, I'm excited to see them do it on Plausible.
hmm. Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, the podcast idea, all of a sudden the light bulb went off in my head
Yeah.
because I'm getting ready to launch a new show, and that would be an interesting way to do
Yeah.
it. On a TV channel, but it would be an interesting way to do it live and then, record that over onto the TV
Yeah.
channel
Why
too.
not?
So yeah, very interesting. I'm super excited about it. It's a really cool platform. I was on there playing around a little bit today, and really got to see a lot about what you're doing. But I learned a lot more from you, as a result of this. So phenomenal.
Good. Thank you. And thanks for going on.
Well, let's transition now to
Mhm.
the fast five questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So here's the first one. You wake up in the morning, business is totally gone. You have $500 in your pocket, a laptop computer, a place to live, food and clothing. What are you going to do first?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is I have to go to the bathroom because that's usually what I do when I first wake up in the morning. So I'd have to do that. Go get a workout in, get some coffee. But when it comes to life, like what would be my plan? I would probably immediately start looking for my next job. What am I going to do? What am I spending all my time in? Yep.
Excellent. Okay. What is the biggest business mistake that you've ever made?
Oh, business mistake? Oh my God. All there's all the time. Like I don't know about business. I guess I wish well, when it comes to
Pick one.
business, I wish I would have started sooner. Not starting sooner. Yep. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. We all say that. I mean, sometimes it's just the right time is the right time, and you had all that time at your company to practice all this stuff so that you were able to launch off when you were forced to.
Yep.
So,
True.
what's a good book that you would recommend for our
It's called The
audience?
One Thing by I wrote it down, Gary Keller. Yeah. It's a really good book. I just finished it.
Yes. Yep. I had been I read it while I was on this trip to Europe just recently, so I'd started it right before and started reading it. And I've had it for probably 5 years and I'd never read it. And finally, just one of my guests said it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to
Yep.
read that. And it's
I love
phenomenal.
it.
It's
I
a
love
great
it.
book. Yeah. What is a tool that you use in your business every day? I bet you I can guess what this is.
uh
That you would recommend for our audience.
Plausible. No. I would let's see. You know what I really like is a business tool is Canva.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. Mhm.
I love Canva, but the challenge of Canva is it makes me it sucks me in, and then I spend way too much time there. So I've kind of given myself a limited time that I can get in there, and I let my team go in there because otherwise I'll spend way too much time.
Yes.
So last question: what
Mhm.
is your definition of freedom?
Oh, it would be a day off. I don't know what that looks like. I would, freedom. Also, yeah, I think it would be a day off. But freedom, I think, also is. I know this is a fast one, but freedom is also the freedom to make decisions, and I think like having
Mhm.
working for myself as an entrepreneur and having that freedom to make decisions on my own is a really freeing thing, and at the same time is kind of terrifying. So freedom comes with a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what's the best way to learn about you?
I go to plausible.com, and then you can reach out to me on the contact.
Okay.
You can see me on there. I host some events on there as well, but you can check me out on LinkedIn, Instagram at plausible, at uh, plausible on X is it called now, and then Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's funny because Elon Musk called Twitter
Okay.
X, and I think Mark Zuckerberg missed an opportunity to call Threads Y. I just thought that should be a thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. just yeah, as much as they kind of go back and forth with each other, that was absolutely
right?
perfect. Well, Leanne, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you coming on, sharing a little bit about Plausible. Um, and Plausible is spelled how or how? Let's make sure.
It's Plauzzable. Plausible.
Okay. Dot
Yep.
com. Um, All right, great. So, folks, what we'll do is we'll put that in the show notes and share that with you. I encourage you to go there, go support these comedians. I mean, these folks are putting themselves out there. And if you enjoy comedy, this is your opportunity to meet and see some people that you probably wouldn't have ever seen. They would be working little small, venues in their town where they live, trying to make it. And this is an opportunity for you to see some budding talent and support some budding talent. And Leanne's putting that out there for everybody. Make sure that you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to it on the podcast channels, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little notification so that you know that we've got a show coming up. Thanks a lot. We do these every Tuesday and Thursday, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.